The restaurant hummed with the sound of clinking glasses, the soft clatter of cutlery, and the muffled buzz of cheerful conversation. It was a typical Saturday evening, and the dining room was packed, with customers laughing and enjoying their meal. Amara, a 24-year-old waitress, moved gracefully through the space, balancing trays and spreading smiles. Amara was known for her warm energy and impeccable service. Working at this restaurant wasn't just a job to her. It was a stepping stone toward her dream of opening her own cafe. Every customer she served, every dish she delivered, felt like a small step closer to her goal. But that night, everything changed. As she approached table 14, her usual confidence was replaced by a sense of unease. Sitting there was a middle-aged man in an expensive suit and his wife, who seemed to be evaluating the surroundings as though they were beneath her. "Good evening, welcome. My name is Amara, and I'll be taking care of you tonight. Can I start you off with something to drink?" The man looked up, his gaze cold and unwelcoming. He didn't respond immediately, but the pause was enough for Amara to sense that something was wrong. "Actually," he began, his tone dry, "we'd prefer to be served by someone else." Amara frowned, surprised. "I'm sorry if something's wrong. I'm here to make sure you have a great experience. Is there anything I can do for you?" The man leaned forward slightly, as if to share a secret. But instead, his voice grew firmer, more impersonal. "Look, I don't mean to cause a scene, but I'd feel more comfortable if someone more appropriate served us. You understand, right?" He didn't need to say more. Amara knew exactly what he meant. It wasn't about her service. It was about who she was. Her heart tightened, but she kept her composure. "Understood, sir. I'll call the manager to assist you." As she walked away from the table, Amara felt the man's wife's eyes following her, satisfied with having gotten their way. Inside, she was hurt, but she knew she had to stay calm. It was just another night, right? Or maybe it wasn't. Amara walked toward the kitchen, trying to hide the trembling in her hands. She knew situations like this still happened, but she had never imagined they would be so blatant, so direct. The restaurant was her second home. Here, she had always felt valued by her team and the customers, but now her heart was heavy with humiliation. Amara, the voice of her manager, Marcos, brought her back to reality. He was a kind man in his 40s, known for treating his staff like family. "Are you okay? You look pale." Amara hesitated. She hated appearing weak, but she knew she had to say something. Taking a deep breath, she explained, "The couple at table 14 asked to be served by someone else. Not because there's a problem, but because..." She swallowed hard, the words catching in her throat. "Because it's me." Marcos frowned. "What do you mean by that?" "They didn't say it outright, but it was clear. They don't want me to serve them because of the color of my skin." Marcos's expression hardened. He wasn't the kind of man to tolerate injustice, and this situation struck a deep chord in him. "I'll take care of it," he said firmly. Amara held his arm. "Please, Marcos, just send someone else. I don't want a scene." Her voice almost broke, but she kept her head high. "No, Amara. This isn't right. They don't have the right to treat you like this." Meanwhile, at table 14, the couple was visibly impatient. The man checked his watch, making a show of his displeasure. The wife, on the other hand, muttered under her breath, but loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "This is unacceptable," she hissed, fidgeting with the tablecloth as if it were dirty. "What kind of unprofessionalism is this?" Marcos finally approached them, wearing a polite smile, but his eyes conveyed something much sterner. "Good evening. My name is Marcos. I'm the manager. I understand there's an issue. How can I help?" The man looked up, unconcerned. "Ah, finally someone in charge. Yes, we'd like to be served by another waiter. That girl..." He paused, carefully choosing his words. "She's not exactly what we were expecting." Marcos crossed his arms. "I see. And what exactly were you expecting?" The wife leaned forward as if sharing a secret. "We don't want to cause trouble, but we think someone else would be more appropriate." Marcos took a deep breath, controlling his anger. He knew exactly what they meant, but wanted to give them the opportunity to expose themselves. "I understand. So, you're saying you have an issue with Amara?" The man scoffed. "Look, we're not here to be interrogated. We just want good service. And clearly..." Marcos interrupted him. "And clearly you don't understand that in this restaurant, we treat everyone with respect. Our staff and our customers. If you can't accept that, perhaps this isn't the right place for you." The entire dining room went silent. The wife's eyes widened, shocked at Marcos's words. "Are you suggesting we leave?" she asked indignantly. "I'm suggesting you rethink your values," he replied calmly. "And if you decide to stay, Amara will be your server. I won't tolerate discrimination." The silence in the dining room was so heavy that even the faint sounds of the kitchen in the background seemed distant. All eyes were on table 14, on Marcos, and on the couple who had just been confronted with their own prejudice. Amara stood near the order station, her heart pounding in her chest as she watched this unfold. Gratitude and fear swirled within her, unsure of what would come next. The man at the table scoffed again, trying to regain control of the situation. "This is ridiculous," he said, looking around as if he hoped to recruit allies from the other patrons. "We're paying customers, and I don't think it's too much to ask for good service." Marco stood his ground, calm but resolute. "And you are receiving good service. Amara is one of our best employees. There is absolutely no reason why she shouldn't serve you except, well, a reason you seem hesitant to admit." The man's face turned red with anger. "Listen here, we don't pay to be interrogated. We just want decent service, and clearly—" Before he could finish, a voice interrupted him from the next table over. "Wait a minute." Amara froze, recognizing the deep, authoritative voice. It belonged to Ricardo, a regular customer who dined at the restaurant every Saturday evening. Ricardo was a local businessman, known for being reserved but friendly. Ricardo placed his napkin on the table and stood up slowly. He had a presence that commanded respect, and the entire room turned to look at him. "I've been listening to this conversation," he began, his voice firm but measured, "and I think it's time someone said something." The couple at table 14 looked at him, confused. "And who are you to get involved?" the man asked, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Ricardo ignored the question and turned to Marcos. "Marcos, you're absolutely right. Nobody should tolerate this kind of behavior in this day and age, but I think these two don't realize who they're dealing with." The couple frowned, their confusion growing. "What's that supposed to mean?" the wife asked. Ricardo smiled faintly, but there was a sharpness in his eyes. "It means I made a mistake by not mentioning earlier that I'm the owner of this restaurant." The dining room erupted into murmurs. Amara's eyes widened in shock. "Ricardo? The owner?" He had never mentioned it before, and had always acted like any other customer. "You're the owner?" the man asked, incredulous. "Yes," Ricardo replied calmly. "And I can tell you with certainty that Amara is one of the most dedicated and capable staff members we have. She's part of the heart of this place, and it's thanks to people like her that this restaurant is what it is." He took a step closer to the couple, his gaze now serious and direct. "Now, let me be clear. You have two options. You can accept Amara's service and enjoy your meal, or you can leave through that door and never return. And to be honest," he added, looking directly at the man, "I think the second option would be better for everyone." The man's face turned crimson. He opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. The wife, who had been so confident moments ago, now looked around and noticed the disapproving expressions of the other patrons. Finally, the man grabbed his coat and threw some bills onto the table. "This is absurd," he muttered before storming out, his wife trailing behind him. As the door closed behind them, the dining room erupted into applause. Amara felt hot tears well up in her eyes, but this time they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of relief, gratitude, and something she hadn't felt in a long time: pride. Ricardo turned to her, his expression softening into a warm smile. "You deserve so much more than what happened tonight. Never let anyone make you feel less than." As the applause subsided, the restaurant gradually returned to its usual rhythm. Yet the air felt different, lighter, as if a weight had... Amara stood near the counter, taking a moment to process everything that had just happened. She still felt the sting of the couple's words, but Ricardo's and Marcos's support had planted a seed of strength within her. Marcos walked over to her, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You handled that with so much grace, Amara. I'm proud of you." She smiled faintly, though her voice trembled. "Thank you, Marcos. I didn't feel strong. I felt small." Marcos shook his head. "The fact that you stayed composed and professional in the face of that kind of behavior shows strength beyond words. You're an example to all of us." Ricardo joined them, his calm and commanding presence instantly making Amara feel more at ease. "Amara," he began, "I want to apologize again for what you went through tonight. It should never have happened. But I also want you to know that while I own this restaurant, it's people like you who make it what it is. You're the soul of this place." Amara's chest swelled with she inhaled deeply, nodding. "Thank you, Ricardo. It means so much to hear that." As the evening wound down, the remaining customers began to express their admiration for how the situation had been handled. One elderly couple approached Ricardo and Marcos, their faces lit with appreciation. "You know," the man said, his voice steady, "what you did tonight was nothing short of extraordinary. You didn't just run a restaurant, you stood for something. My wife and I will be coming back often. People like you deserve all the support in the world." Ricardo smiled, shaking the man's hand. "Thank you. That means a lot to us." Later that night, after the restaurant had closed, Amara sat on the small sofa in the break room, sipping a cup of tea that her coworker Clara had brought her. The warmth of the tea seeped into her hands, grounding her. "You know," Clara said, breaking the silence, "you were amazing tonight. What happened was awful, but the way you carried yourself, That takes dignity. Amara nodded, her voice quiet but resolute. It hurt, Clara. But I don't want this to define me. I want to be stronger. You already are, Clara replied with a warm smile. When Amara finally left the restaurant, the cool night air felt refreshing against her skin. She looked up at the stars, her heart lighter than it had been hours before. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Racism and prejudice were realities she'd face again. But now, she had something she hadn't before. A deep, unshakable belief in herself and the knowledge that she wasn't alone. At home, she opened her small notebook, the one where she wrote down her dreams of opening her own cafe. On a fresh page, she wrote 3 bold words: strength, dignity, justice. This was her mantra now, the foundation of the future she was determined to build. This is more than just a story. It's a reality that too many people face every day. Amara's experience isn't an isolated case. According to a 2022 study by Harvard Business Review, over 53% of Black employees in customer-facing roles have reported experiencing racial discrimination. Discrimination like this isn't just hurtful, it has real consequences. Studies from the Pew Research Center show that nearly 60% of Black Americans believe they have been treated unfairly in restaurants, stores, or workplaces due to their race. But here's what Amara's story teaches us. Silence allows injustice to continue, but speaking up can change everything. Her manager and the restaurant owner stood beside her, proving that allyship can turn moments of humiliation into victories of dignity and justice. Have you ever faced or witnessed discrimination like this? How did you react? What did you learn? Share your experience in the comments. Your story could inspire someone who's struggling right now. Spread this message. Share this video with friends and family. The more we expose these injustices, the closer we get to a world where respect and fairness are the standard, not the exception. Stand against discrimination. Speak up. Take action. Because when we refuse to accept injustice, we create real change.